This is Marketplace. I'm Kai Rizdal. I know that we all know that there are a lot of data centers being built out there. A lot. And I know that we all know they're using a lot of electricity. A lot. I'm not sure, though, that we all realize exactly how much. Bloomberg's got a research service. They call it Bloomberg NEF for New Energy Finance. They say that over the next 10 years, data centers are going to burn through 36% more energy than Bloomberg NEF was forecasting just 7 months ago. On the East Coast, energy demand from new data centers could almost match all the power being added to the grid in the next 4 years. In Texas, that could happen within 2. Marketplace's Samantha Fields spent her day figuring out what that's going to mean.
Much of the current power grid system was built in the 1960s and 70s, a slightly different time.
We didn't know that people were going to increasingly urbanize. We didn't know electric vehicles were going to become adopted. We didn't know about rooftop solar.
Kyrie Baker at the University of Colorado Boulder says the power grid wasn't exactly built in the most optimal way for how we use it today.
And so it's getting very, very challenging because the grid is already aging. It's already strained. We have been increasing energy use in general in many areas of the U.S. And so this is just adding an additional layer of complexity. Now we have these massive multi-hundreds of megawatts or gigawatts loads that are getting added to the grid.
Data centers are the most talked about reason electricity demand is growing. But Joshua Rhodes at the University of Texas at Austin says there's also population growth and the push to electrify much of the economy with EVs and heat pumps.
But data centers are the most visible part of that growth. And really, it's all kind of coming together at the same time when we have other supply chains that are also under constraint.
And he says it's going to be a challenge for utilities and the grid to keep up, especially with these massive new data centers.
If you look at the top level numbers for the number of data centers and their power demand, you're talking about doubling, tripling the grid in some places in just a handful of years.
Doing that will require replacing and building a lot of physical infrastructure, which takes time, Rhodes says, and has gotten more expensive.
All of those things that we use to build the grid, from the power plants to the transformers to the power lines, the cost of these things is double, sometimes triple, what it was just a few years ago.
And he says those higher costs will likely be passed on to consumers in the form of higher electricity bills. Barbara Kate Skarnick at the Fletcher School at Tufts University agrees.
Yes, we're going to see our bills go up tremendously, and we have to decide who pays, when they pay, and how they pay.
This is a huge issue, she says, that is just starting to come to a head. I'm Samantha Fields for Marketplace.
The good news is that Airbus says it has finished updating the software on, and this is a quote, the vast majority of the 6,000 A320 class passenger jets that were found wanting after we heard over Thanksgiving about that incident where, and this is another quote, intense solar radiation did a number on key flight control software on those planes. The bad news is that intense solar radiation did a number on key flight control software on those planes. The reality is, though, as Marketplace's Daniel Ackerman reports, airplanes are way more than engines and wings and tiny bathrooms.
To oversimplify just a bit,
modern aircraft are flying computers.
Samuel Engel researches the economics of air travel at Boston University. And he says most planes these days are so-called fly-by-wire.
That is, the pilots are manipulating a small joystick that is sending messages to the computer,
which then signals the mechanical parts to move. He says before that was done via cables or hydraulics. And all the onboard software has two main jobs, says Mike Stengel of Aerodynamic Advisory.
Number one is keeping the aircraft in its safe flight envelope, not letting it bank too hard to the left or right, not letting it, enter stall territory.
He says the computers also ease the workload for the pilots.
So you can literally reduce the number of switches on a plane.
Stengel says since software has become so important to flying, Boeing and Airbus are relying less on outside suppliers for it.
The aircraft manufacturers have gotten more heavily involved in the designing and developing the software that goes into the aircraft.
There could be risks in letting computers take on so much work. Dan Bubb at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, says some investigators think malware contributed to a deadly crash in Spain in 2008. And even though that hasn't been confirmed,
that set off the alarms and made every airline, manufacturer aware of, now we have another challenge, cyber attacks.
Overall, though, software has helped make air travel safer, says Nicholas Owens, an analyst at Morningstar. And just like many of the mechanical systems, there's redundancy built into aircraft computer systems.
You have more than one flight computer controlling each of the various ailerons and rudders and elevators and so forth.
And if the computer systems fail at the same time, Owens says there are still ways for pilots to take back some control with their own human hands. I'm Daniel Ackerman for Marketplace.
Marketplace is supported by the Financial Times, the pink newspaper with a global lens on politics, business, and economics to help readers know what's next. Source FT. More at FT.com. And by Michigan Technological University, where students across 9 undergraduate degree programs study emerging technologies in robotics and autonomous systems. Learn more at mtu.edu/robotics.
This final note on the way out today, the first and very last mention of Jeffrey Epstein on this program. The American Economics Association has banned former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers for life over his association with Epstein. Minor, perhaps, given the scale and scope of what was done, but not nothing. Jordan Manji, Zonil Maharaj, Janet Wynn, Olga Oxman, and Virginia K. Smith are part of the digital team around here. I'm Kai Ryssdal. We will see you tomorrow, everybody. This is APM.
WNYC is supported by the